Oh. 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 Satchidanandarupaya Vishwotpattyadihetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratascharteshvabhignaswarat Tene brahmahradaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayaha Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha Dhamna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi Dharma projita ketavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayonmulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim va parerishvaraha Sadyo hridyavarudhyate trakritibihi shushrushubistatkshanah. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls, from Toronto. The message of Srimad Bhagavatam is high thinking. What is evidence of this? That in the first verse, the last teaching is Satyam Param Dhimahi. May we contemplate on the truth. The message of Chick culture, that is our young adults movement, is also high thinking. How so? When one is engaged in high thinking, then they are stronger than pressure. A prerequisite to high thinking is simple living. Simple living is a catalyst to high thinking. And again, I'm trying to share a lot of evidence of this. If you analyze Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 practices in becoming free, it starts with yamas and niyamas, correct? Simplify your lifestyle. But then it grows to dharana and dhyana, high thinking. Please share with me, in regards to Sanatana Dharma, what are some icons of simple living? What are some icons? Who are some icons of simple living? Share in the chat. Bhagavan Shiva, all of the rishis, Gandhiji, Sri Lakshmana, wow, Raja Prithu. Everyone is thinking lots about this. Lovely. The one that I want us to tune into, especially based on the last Adhyaya of Bhagavatam, which focused on Bhagavan Shiva. Bhagavan Shiva is an icon of simple living. What everyone else doesn't want, he accepts, correct? In terms of articles, beings, circumstances. No one else wants poison, he accepts that poison. He didn't want that poison, okay? He simply accepted that poison. In Vedanta and Bhagavata and Stronger Than Pressure, we are leveraging vidya. We are utilizing knowledge. Another definition of vidya is remembering. And so for the remaining part of our class, I'm going to share with all of you how we can remember to live simply. We've all explored tips for happy living. This will be tips for simple living. And this will be so simple that we're going to make this an acrostic poem using the word Shiva. Everyone's ready? Simple living is required for high thinking. This is a means to the ends. Starting with S. The S in Shiva. Set your nature. Set your nature. Each of these is to be practiced serially. This is practice 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Set your nature. If you are confident about what your nature is, as an example, if you're confident that your nature is joy, then all else that you engage in, you will not try to extract joy from that. Agreed? If someone is functionally rich and they know that, then they don't go looking to start more businesses. They're functionally rich and they know that. If you feel your nature is the mind, if you set that, then every day you will engage in the development of the mind, not just the body. Set your nature. For those who are really able to tune into this, that my nature is infinity, that my nature is divinity, then all else naturally becomes relative. If my nature is infinity or the absolute, then my clothes are relative. My marks are relative. My friends are relative. The weather is relative. My body aches are relative. My negative thoughts are relative. And if they're relative, you can treat them as relative, yes? How many of you dreamt last night? You had a dream. By show of hands. And then when you woke up, what did you do with that dream? You took a tube and you took it into this inception mode and kept it. That dream is relative. So you, like a Paramahamsa sannyasi, you renounced it. When we set our nature, then it becomes easy to let go of all that is relative. And so we're completely clear on how to practice this. Set your nature, do this in the morning. Anyone who wants to become a simple liver, that also means you have to be a morning person. The later you stay up at night, the more complex living becomes. Set your morning so that the rest of your day is set too. S is clear. We continue to H. Handle for evolution. Handle for evolution. All that we experience, what is the purpose of that experience? It is for our evolution. And if I handle this, that this experience is coming to me for my evolution, it becomes that much more purposeful, meaningful, and so on. Handle for evolution. There is a saying that We learn more in adversity than in prosperity. You've heard that before. Do you agree with that 100%? Initially, yes, but for those who are more mature, they learn in prosperity also, correct? So sometimes our experiences are more adversity oriented. What should you do with that? That's for your evolution. Sometimes experiences are easier. What should you do with that? That's for your evolution too. Whenever we handle it for evolution, that experience will become more joyous. You will know that you're doing this is even if there's adversity, even if it's hard, but in that experience and certainly afterwards, you feel more joyous. That means you've evolved. You've come to know your nature more. Zooming in on this completely, learn from every experience. Learn from every experience. If you're in a car accident, learn from it. If you hear about someone in a car accident, learn from that. If you see someone else get into a car accident, learn from that. Nothing that happens to us is casual. It was Master Ugwe who taught that to Master Shifu, correct? There are no accidents. Yes? Where was that sourced from? You know what I'm going to share. You can just remember that internally. And this is where I've shared with all of you many times the importance of vitamin R3. To read, to write, to reflect. Now you're already waking up in the morning. What should you do in the morning? Read, write, and reflect. See how you've created that impression that you should learn. Then the rest of the day becomes more interesting. I have found that people who don't handle for evolution, they're bored. And bored people are boring. Interested people are interesting. So if you're bored, whenever you create profiles for TikTok or Shadi.com, make sure you write you're boring, okay? You should be honest about who you are. If you use someone else's photograph, that may be illegal. So if you describe yourself as interesting, but you're boring, then that should be illegal also. Set your nature, handle for evolution. I invest in effort. Invest in effort. Again, these are to be practiced serially. So this is your third practice. Knowing that all that is in your life is for your evolution, that really becomes your responsibility. And what should you give towards your responsibility? Resources, time, but most of all, effort. Undoubtedly, you should work hard, but you should also work smart. Those who work hard, it's like they're trying to do things one at a time. But those who work smart, they create a system for many things to get done at a time. I don't mean this in the sense of multitasking. I mean, they keep investing into their responsibility and figuring out ways where this can become more beautiful, more powerful. This is one of the most quoted messages from Bhagavad Gita, where Bhagavan Krishna tells Prince Arjuna, focus on your efforts and not on the results. How many of you, by a show of hands, in 2022 have experienced some sense of anxiety? By a show of hands, you've experienced some sort of anxiety. A lot, doesn't matter if you're young or old. Anxiety, in a most big picture understanding, relates to the future. Now, what is going to happen in the future? What do we hope will happen in the future? Results. But if someone is following what Bhagavan Krishna has taught to invest in effort, that means you're less dependent on results, which means you're less dependent on the future, which means you have less anxiety. I have found with a lot of young adults, families, there's a great emphasis on excellence and not effort. And the danger of that. How many of you have found that school has been fairly easy for you? By a show of hands, your academic career has been fairly easy. Okay. Professionally, how many of you have found your professional lifestyle has been fairly easy? Okay. For those who have found this easy, you have been successful. Eventually, you're going to meet someone who has found this to be more easy and more successful. Agreed? And when you meet that person, what's going to happen to you? You're going to feel crushed. Because your whole life, you have been excellent, but now there's someone who's more excellent. And I just don't know what to do with that. So I feel crushed. But for the one who invests in effort, they are the master of their own security, the master of their own joy. Zooming in on this completely, invest in effort helps us to live in the present. In the present, there are no anxieties. In the present, there is unitasking. In the present, there is quietude. Zooming out again. Our class, our workshop, relates to high thinking. To be able to engage in high thinking, you first have to facilitate simple living. An icon of simple living, Bhagavan Shiva. What does Bhagavan Shiva wear for a lower cloth? What is his dhoti made out of? Please tell me in the chat. It's Banana Republic, made in Vietnam. A deer skin, a tiger skin, an elephant skin. It is to be noted that those animals have naturally died and he has used that skin. He didn't kill that elephant and then use it. This elephant skin is getting old. I think I need a new one. So simple living. S, set your nature. H, handle for evolution. I, invest in effort. V, value the deep. Value the deep. These are sutras, okay? I know value the deep is not a proper sentence. These are reminders. Humans look for these two qualities in other humans to have beautiful relationships. They are authenticity and depth. Authenticity and depth. Valuing the deep is when you have relationships that are authentic and deep. Automatically, that means quality and not quantity. On Facebook, apparently, I have 5,000 friends. Apparently, I have 1,500 followers. I don't even know who they are. What kind of authenticity and depth could there be when I don't know them and they probably don't know me either? Quality. Now expand that to your education. How many of you, those who are in college, you're in a stream that you want to be in as compared to in a stream that your parents or the community or society wants you to be in? How many of you are in a stream that you want to be in? By show of hands. There's some, there's lots who are not. So what are you valuing then? You're letting someone else live your life. You're the one who has to get that job. Connecting with those who are a little bit older. How many of you had an arranged marriage? By a show of hands. Okay. My parents, when they were growing up, they were as if trained to accept an arranged marriage. My mother has literally told me, my father thought she was all right looking. She thought he was all right looking, and they got married. Now, I think about Sheila and I, as in my wife and I, we were not trained for accepting an arranged marriage. We're not trained for that. We dated, we were engaged, we're married, etc. And the point I'm trying to make here is that now, my generation and those who are younger, I have to be married to my wife in my context. My parents don't have to be married to my wife. I will live with my wife for 50 years, let's say. My parents will know of my wife for, let's say, 25 years. So valuing the deep means you focus on what's quality oriented for you in terms of relationships, in terms of your education, and so on. And I know you know this, the more deep you're tuned into, the more depth you're tuned into, the more stability there is. On the surface of an ocean, there is a lot of noise. But as you go deeper into that ocean, there's less noise, yes? If you go into the Marianas Trench, there may be no noise there. We should have our silence retreat there. The fee is $25,000 to get there. Stability. So many of us are challenged by change, correct? You wrote that. And that naturally happens in terms of the shallow, but if we're tuned into the deep, there will be more stability. One more insight into value the deep before we complete this poem. Valuing the deep means you are nurturing your own security. You are nurturing your own security. One is living their life so they have less FOMO, fear of missing out. They're living their life so they have more JOMO, the joy of missing out. Their security is not dependent on any external factor. It is all internalized. Security. You wake up in the morning, you're ready to learn from all of your experiences, you're being in the present, and in all of this, you'll start to feel more secure. And when you can do that for yourself, this leads to the final practice for simple living. Absorb the shallow. Absorb the shallow. How many of you would classify yourself as a deep person by a show of hands? How many of you would classify yourself as a shallow person by a show of hands? Okay. A lot of shallow people who are not accepting that they're shallow. Not everyone is going to be deep. In fact, that's a rare personality. The typical person is shallow. They're focused on the shallow, which means they are always going to be deflecting their weaknesses onto you. A great sign of someone who's shallow is they deflect. When our children set up trains and tracks in the living room and occasionally they'll trip on that, they'll say, "Who put that there?" You did. It's your train and your track. You think I did that? But see how they deflect. And they're frustrated by that. They're angry by that. That's going to happen to you. That's happened, will happen. And when you know that another person is deflecting their weaknesses onto you, what should you do? Actually, it's your fault. You did this. You're like this. Just absorb. Smile and nod. When my kids say, who put it there? I touch their feet and say, I did it. Just absorb. Because it certainly helps you and it helps them too. In a more psychological sense, absorbing the shallow is forgiving yourself, which helps you to forgive others. We all make mistakes. And if you keep zooming in on the mistake you made, you are not a mistake, but you made a mistake. It's a shallow part of who you are. You absorb that. Forgive yourself. And then the same for others also. I read a great sign that said, we all make mistakes, and mistake was spelled wrong. So absorb that. It is critical. This last point about absorb the shallow, self-forgiveness, other forgiveness, it is critical to be able to move on. Those who don't invest in effort, they experience anxiety. Those who don't absorb the shallow, they experience regrets. What happened? They just keep on offering more thoughts to that, more thoughts to that, more thoughts to that. They're stuck. Set your nature, handle for evolution, invest in effort, value the deep, absorb the shallow. 5 ways that we can practice being like Bhagavan Shiva. One more name for Bhagavan Shiva, one of his most lovely names, is Ashutosh. Ashutosh means the one who's easily pleased. The one who is independently content. Simple living becomes the catalyst for high thinking. How do you know you're engaged in high thinking? You become Ashutosh. Easily pleased, ever grateful. Oh.